youngest here to graduate high school, which he's a freshman this starting next week. And so in 4 years, we're going to do 4 months here, 4 months in Madison, and 4 months in California.
Where's Austin in the mix?
I'll fly over and drop in with my little helipad.
You're hilarious. We all need a helicopter. Um, cool. Okay. We're live now. I don't know why I was having issues this morning, but we are live. So I'm going to record on this computer. Awesome. We got it. I will have to get on my phone shortly because I have to head to a closing kind of mid towards the end of this. So if I disappear, I haven't disappeared. So good morning, guys. Happy Friday. Sorry for the dog. Has everybody had a good week? Yes. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I'm super fired up today because we have one of my favorite people in the world, Mitch Rybeck. And I don't know if you I always say your name wrong. I know, Rybeck. I know, but I have it. I just say whatever I want to do. My Mitch. My Mitch is what I'm going to call
I've
him.
been called everything.
Yeah. Mitch is one of my favorite people in the world. And if you guys are plugged into Family Tree, you've probably seen his face, his name quite a bit because Mitch is one of the co-founders along with me, Rich Tomancini, and then Hank on Family Tree. So the four of us have different organizations, different groups. And what was happening is we would just mastermind and collaborate on a weekly basis. And we were all trying to figure out how to help our different groups. And we realized, well, we're all on different islands. Why don't we just bring all of our islands together? And that's where Family Tree was born. So it's been super exciting. Like I said, I respect the world out of him. I learn from him every single day. And he was talking about some of the things he's been teaching in his local market and some other agents online. And I said, hey, that sounds really awesome. One of it, and I don't know if this is the title, Mitch, but treating a business like a business or building the business like a business.
Yeah, I just wrote this last week before my before my class I was teaching. So I literally wrote this in about 15 minutes, which is hysterical.
You don't have to tell him
Um,
that. You could say it took
no,
22
well, it's
years.
22 years of experience. It's actually
That's
42
right.
years of experience. That's why it came out so quickly. But
Fair. That's fair.
yeah,
That's fair.
but it was
So
really I had to teach the
yeah.
class, and I was like, oh, I should. So I didn't really give it a proper name yet. So
Okay. Well,
building
it
your
doesn't need.
business, building a real estate business, not being bald, whatever you want it to be.
All right. That one. I'm not even going to touch that one. So I asked him to come and share with us this morning. I'm super fired up for y'all to get to know him a little bit more as well. And so, Mitch, you have sharing capabilities. You have the floor, my friend, and thanks for being here.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, Elizabeth, because I feel the same way about you. We have this really cool love fest between the four of us, right? It's really
Yeah.
weird. And of
And
course,
we're all so
My buddy
different.
Brian down there too. So,
Yeah.
what's up,
And
Brian?
we're all so different, which is what's cool because we bring different perspectives and
Yeah,
ideas to the table. So
I'm
cool.
definitely the funniest of the four. So,
Yes. And the better
you need
and the
to.
better looking, right?
Well, no, I won't go. Rich is better looking than I
All
am, and
right. Fair, fair.
you're way better looking than I am. Hank and I, we
I
could
win. Yeah.
Hank and I could probably compete for the ugliest guys on the planet, but
You're
uh,
so mean. You're so mean to yourself. Oh
it's
my
all good.
gosh.
Self-deprecating humor is the best, right? Anyway, so thanks for having me. So basically, this came out of me. I do a lot of classes, and we can talk about that another day. But um, I'm always trying to get realtors to be better. And I've been self-employed. I'll give you a quick background. Self-employed since I was 19, so like 5 years. I've been self-employed. Um, did everything from I was the third paintball business in the world. I was the first online dating service. I owned a flower business. I owned a regular dating service. I owned a marketing company. I owned an ad agency. I owned a restaurant. I owned an inside sales company. I owned a real estate brokerage. I owned referral companies, et cetera, et cetera. There's 23 of them intermediate there. So what has that done for me besides wear me out and make me feel like I'm 100 years old? It really is literally give me the experience to build businesses and not a job. And what I find with most realtors, and by the way, notice I don't say realtors, I never got that, realtors, um, is they don't ever build a business. And I'm not talking about people that are not successful. I'm talking about people that are hugely successful that still haven't built a business. I have one of my agents here who I love dearly, does 30 plus $1 million a year and just has no life. And I talked to a broker, not broker, an agent the other day, not with EXP, and said to him, He was 62 years old, never got married, never, um, no kids, the whole works. And I said, "What are you waiting for?" He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "How many homes a year do you sell?" He goes, "80 homes a year for the past 35 years." I go, "That's great." I go, "You know you're going to die soon, right?" Because that's just the reality. At 62 years old, we're going to die soon. I'm 62, so I can attest to this. I mean, soon I'm hoping it's 20 or 30 years, or 25 or 30 or 40 years, but the reality is time is not on my side. Um, but so I said to this guy, I go, "When are you going to start living?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "You have not lived. You gave up everything in your life to make money, and now you're sitting here with a lot of money but no life." So I really try to work hard with people on balance and understanding balance. And I was that guy, by the way. I did not see my kids grow up. Um, and I worked 80 to 100 hours a week up until 2 years ago. Thank God for EXP's changed my life dramatically, as it had for many of us. And I work 35 hours a week now, and all I do is coach. I don't sell anymore. I stopped selling, and if I sell another house, please shoot me. Um, but with that said, you guys need to sell a shitload of homes. So what I want to go through today is kind of some of this is going to be very basic, but it's really all about running a business and being a proactive realtor versus a reactive realtor. Most realtors are reactive, where they're waiting for the phone to ring, where I don't understand that concept. I was a proactive realtor and I did business on my terms, but I didn't do it right away. It took me a couple of years to figure out the real estate business. But after 3 years, I stopped working Sundays, cut down to 60 hours a week, which I think is a fair amount of time. And then when I opened my brokerage, I went back up to 80 to 100 hours a week because running a brokerage is the worst gig in the world. If you've never done that, don't do it. All right, so let me pull this up. This is just a guide for me, um, and I gave Elizabeth this so she can share it with you guys. But this is what I want to go over here is just really step by step, all the way from the basics. The basics is, you're an independent contractor, but do you want to be a LLC? Do you want to be a PA? And that's up to you if you want to start a corporation. I never started a corporation as a realtor. I'm still not as a realtor. I'm not a corporation because the taxes are about the same. It wasn't really any benefit for me with my accountant to become an LLC or a PA. Bank accounts. I see so many realtors intermingling their bank accounts with their personal accounts. You can't do that. You have to have a separate business account. Again, we're going to run a business here. We're not going to have a job or a hobby. We're going to run a business. And by the way, just let me preface this. If this is a hobby for you, awesome. I will never begrudge anybody that wants to sell 3 or 4 or 5 homes a year and that's their life. But if you want to run a business, then you need to run a business. Same thing with commission checks. I was broke when I first got in the business. I lost $82 million, and I got in the business with $14,000 to my name, and I was desperate to sell homes. But
Wait
I
a minute,
also
you just
knew,
you just flew over that really quick, y'all. He lost
like,
$82 million. Do you understand that? And he didn't let that get him down, and he just took his lessons from that and rebuilt. So anyway, that's just you just
okay,
kind of flew over that number, Mitch.
yeah, it's just like, well, that's not a big deal to me anymore. But I will tell you, the first 3 days after losing $82 million, you bawl your eyes out. You don't leave your bed. You drink like a fish, which seems to not stop lately. No, I'm kidding. But then you get up and you look in the mirror and you go, all right, well, I was 40 years old. I'm like, well, what do I do? I have two choices right now. I can go into a massive depression, which I've seen people do, or I can say, all right, what's next? But the reality is, I still had a company I had to run. The company, even though we lost $82 million, wasn't out of business yet. It took another year before that happened, and that's when I got into real estate in 2001. But anyways, and by the way, that's my best lessons in my life are my losses. I lost a restaurant in 1990 and lost everything: my house, my vacation homes, my cars. My dad went on the heart transplant list the same time I was in the hospital from stress from the restaurant. Decided to close the restaurant and spent the next 4 months with my dad every single day for 8 hours a day till he died. And then I look back many years later because it was a really tough time for me. What a blessing it was to lose the restaurant because I get to spend those 4 months with my dad, which is way more important than any money you could buy. And so everything happens for a reason. You're here for a reason. You're in this business for a reason. All right. So when you get a paycheck, when you get a commission check, not a paycheck, you need to divide that into three places. One is it's got 30% has to go into marketing. I learned from the number one furniture store in the world is up in Massachusetts, and I got to meet the owners of that store. They took a 2,000 square foot store that their dad owned and turned it into the biggest store in the world, dollars per square foot. And I got to meet with them one day, and I asked them, tell me how you budgeted your marketing to do what you've done. And they have an incredible marketing. And they only, were dollars are a lot different at that level, but they when they started, 5% of their revenue went to marketing. And even when they were making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, 5% still went to marketing. So they constantly grew their business. Same thing with us as realtors. You need a war chest. So 30% of your paycheck should go to marketing. 30% goes to taxes, or you're going to be scrambling in April to try to get 30,000, whatever that dollar figure is for taxes. Again, I did all this. This is why I know all this stuff. And then you pay yourself with 40%. Average realtor gets a $10,000 check. Party time. Let's go. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to go away for the weekend. I got one of my agents who I love to death, made $15,000 on a check last weekend. I'm sorry, last month. Spent it all, and then called me the other day asking if he could have a loan because he can't pay his mortgage. What's up with that? He's not running a business. He's running a reactive, whatever it is. All right. So every business I've ever owned. Oh, and by the way, get a really, really good accountant. It's really important to have a good accountant. Right? And there's definitely a difference between accountants. If your accountant's not good and offering you good tax strategies and stuff like that, find a different accountant. First step, every business I've ever owned is write a business plan. Right. So again, things that I don't see too many realtors doing is writing business plans. What is they just kind of go in, they take a couple classes at their brokerage, and you go, all right, I'm ready to rock. Well, no, you have no plan. So how do you expect to execute something if you don't have a plan? Day one, when I was in real estate business, the first day I wrote a business plan. And I've been looking for it. I've been trying to find it. I can't find it. So it's 22 years ago, but I'm just trying to find it. But it doesn't have to be long. Mine was 2 pages. It needs to have your vision of what you look like, what your sales look like this year, and how are you going to get to those sevens? How much will that revenue generate for you? What forms of lead generation you're going to use? Every business I've ever owned, the first thing I do is build a foundation, and the foundation is where am I going to get business from? So in the real estate world, again, very few people do this, and Elizabeth is a master of it, is building a sphere of influence. I mean, most of you have lived where you've lived for a long enough time that you can sit there on your phone. If you take out your phone right now, right, and you go to your contacts and scroll down, check how many contacts you have. Most people have between 600 and 5,000. There's your database right there. Even if you're brand new, you can start with that. What's your marketing budget? And again, that can increase over time. Breakdown of where you're going to spend that marketing budget, and then estimate how many leads and tracking that marketing, because you don't want to spend money that's a waste of money. Now, you can always reach out to people like myself that spend millions of dollars wasting money on different aspects of real estate and find out what works and what doesn't work. And then you got to figure at what point do I need to hire a TC? Like I knew at the end of my first year, I was going to need to hire someone to do my $10 an hour jobs. Right. So I'm a big believer in do not do $10 an hour jobs. Well, these days it's $15 an hour. But, but you can't do that. If you're doing that, you're just an admin person. Take away the stuff that is not revenue generating stuff for you and get rid of it onto somebody, whether it be a VA or a personal assistant. Most importantly, do the work. I can't tell you how many people blame their brokerage for not being successful. It has nothing to do with their brokerage. Successful people who are successful at EXP will be successful at Remax, will be successful at Century 21, and vice versa. I had a conversation with a Remax agent recently who's thinking about joining, and I said he does $20 million a year, and I said so. He goes, well, I can't leave Remax. My whole business is based on Remax. I go, so what if your broker decided to close Remax tomorrow and just go to independent? What would you do? He goes, I don't know. I go, so you're telling me you kind of suck if you're not under the Remax brand? And he goes, no, 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 no. And I got him finally to understand that he's the reason he's successful. There's plenty of agents at Remax, as with EXP, as with any brokers, that are not productive, right? Um, and then finally, make a determination. And this is really important. And I don't mean this to be mean, but you have to determine if this is a hobby or if this is actually really a business. And if it's a hobby, it's okay, like I said at the beginning. But if it's a business, you really need to run a business. And I said I have very, very successful realtors in my organization that are not running businesses. They're on the rat race and they'll never get off that rat race. If you run a business, you learn to leverage. Let me give you an example of that. Up until 2 years ago when I stopped selling homes, I was selling about 25 to 30 homes. I worked 100 hours a year to do that. That was it. I didn't show, I know I don't show property. I hire people to show property for me because that's not the best use of my time. Never lost a customer for it. And I go on a listing appointment, and I turn my listing appointment over to Pat, my general manager, and she facilitates the rest of the deal. So I literally worked $100. Now I made 50% of what I made would have made. I made 150,000 versus $300,000. But to me, time is more important than money. So I leveraged properly. I built a business. Be proactive with your customers. Set the standards on how you work. If you don't, they'll abuse you. And what I mean by that, if you're answering your phone at 10 o'clock at night, what do your customers expect? Answer the phone at 10 o'clock at night. If you're answering the phone at 6 o'clock, and I'm talking about texting too. Now, if it's emergency in the middle of a deal that's falling apart, different story. But I'm talking about regular people. You could not text me even today after 7 o'clock at night. I won't respond. Now, I may respond if my wife goes to bed early, but generally I won't respond. So I determine my business to be run the way I want it, not my customers' way. And how do I do that? I firstly start out with educating my buyers on how we get paid, and myself, but mostly my buyers on how we get paid. And I'll say, I'm going to give you 150% finding a home. I'm really, really good at it, but I have a few rules, and I like to discuss those. First of all, I do not get paid if you do not buy a house from me. I'm sure when you do your job and you want to get paid for it, I want to get paid for my job too. However, if for some reason you don't like me, or you're not happy with me for any reason, just fire me right away so we can get that over with. I'm okay with that. You have me Monday through Saturday, from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, and Sundays is my family day. Again, if you can't respect that, I can't be your realtor. So I took all the way of them thinking they had the power over me, giving them my standards of how I run my business. And this is a big aha moment when I figured this out by my second year in the business. That I was People were calling me all the time. What's up? Oh, does somebody have a question? No? Okay. Um, so educate, and then I say, the one thing I do expect is loyalty, and here's a few scenarios that could happen. One, are you remotely interested in new construction? If they are, then we're gonna have a new construction conversation. I'll go register them at new construction places. If they, I say, if you see it for sale by owner sign, call me with the phone number and the address, because what we find is the biggest lawsuits come from for sale by owners. And we talk, and I'm not going to get into details on stuff. We talk about going into open houses. We talk about listing signs. I let them know when I work, and I don't answer phone numbers outside of those phones, or texts outside of those hours. And you can say that on your phone. Hi, you reached the cell phone of Mitch Riback with eXp Realty. If it's after 6 o'clock, I'll call you first thing tomorrow. Yeah, just I work. Do you ever see any doctors picking up the phone at 10 o'clock at night? Or lawyers picking up the phone at 10 o'clock? If you don't act like a professional, guess what? You're not. You're not a professional. Pretty simple, right? Okay. Daily schedule. And it's really important to have a really solid daily schedule. So what does that look like? I do my schedules when I was selling houses the day before. Now I do them a week in advance. But back then I would do my daily schedules the day before, and what I had to do. But I was really, really good at time blocking. And I know you guys have heard that a million times from a million people, but you know who times blocks? Successful people. So do you want to be successful? Do you want to not be successful? And then how many hours you get a week? Again, I don't begrudge you. If you got into real estate because you wanted to have a part-time job and make an extra $50,000 to $100,000, great. Just figure out how you got to do that. But again, work those hours and actually work them. We did a study when I had only 20 agents. My brokerage had 120 agents. When we had 20 agents, we did a study of every agent in the group. We had really successful agents, really not successful agents. Our most successful agents worked 3.5 hours a day. Our least successful agents were working between 1 and 2 hours a day. And it's a great exercise to do to yourself is look at, what are you really working? Are you really working full time? Probably not. I'm going to be honest with you, probably not. So what we did is we started on Monday, and from Monday through Sunday we tracked every minute of every day. And we just counted up the minutes of how much hours we actually worked, and everybody was shocked. Everybody thought they were working full time, and almost none of them were. Again, how many days are you going to work? How many hours are you going to prospect a day? If you're not doing something to build your business every day, you are not building a business. You have to always be trying to get business. How many hours are you going to network with consumers and other agents? You should never be doing nothing. I had an agent come in not too long ago. She was doing. She'd been here for 4 months. She's been with EXP for about a year, but moved to this area, my area, Cocoa Beach, Melbourne, Florida area. And she came to see me because she was struggling. And I said, "So, well, tell me what your day looks like." She goes, "Well, I'm on social media most day, promoting stuff and doing stuff like that." And I go, "Well, how's that working?" She goes, it's not. And it doesn't, right? Very few people are successful on social media. I'm not saying not to do it as part of your plan, but if that's all you're doing, you're probably not getting any business. So there's a coffee shop not too far from here, and there's always a line. It's not a Starbucks, but it's always a line. It's called Osario's. And I said, I want you to go to Cocoa Village where it is, and I want you to go to this place called Osario's, and I want you to stand in line, and this is what I want you to do. I want you, the person either in front of you or behind you, I want you to say, hey, how's your day going today? And they're going to say it's going great or it's going good. Very few people say it sucks, even if it does. And then they're going to say back to you, how's your day going? And I want you to answer just like this. Oh, I'm in the real estate business. It's crazy. When you do that, it starts a whole conversation about real estate, and that goes in two different directions. The one direction is well, tell me about the market. One of the things I like to do for my friends is I send them every month. I send them an update of what's going on in the market. I'd love to do that. It's really more to talk about in 5 minutes in the line here. Would you like me to do that? Almost always they say yes. Oh, that'd be great. And now you've just added that one person a day you have to add to your database. Okay? In this case, I got a call 2 hours later. She goes, "You're not going to believe this." I go, "What?" She goes, "I got a listing." The guy was selling his house and hadn't picked a realtor yet, and she would happen to be in front of them at the time they were thinking about buying or selling. And that's why people use realtors, by the way. They don't use them because you're awesome. You'll have a few loyal customers. They use you because you happen to be in front of them when they're thinking about buying or selling. So if you don't have a good solid 2 times a month email campaign, phone campaign, I always say you should do, but nobody does it. So email campaign, so you're in front of them twice a month. Again, but you should never be doing nothing. If you're sitting home pretending like you're working, you're not working. Get out, go to builders, go to realtor events, go stand in line somewhere. I've sold dozens of homes at Publix. Publix is our grocery store here in Florida. I've dozens of homes. I always go to the longest, whatever the longest line is, that's where I'm going to be. All right, so that's basic stuff on real estate, right? But there's more to this. There's more to becoming successful running a business than just the stuff we just talked about. Any questions so far? No. Okay. Um, so I'm a huge believer in self-help. If you're not personally growing, your business isn't growing, nothing is growing, and your relationships aren't growing. So I'm a big believer. I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. I've been to 3 of his big events, and they're phenomenal. Changed my life. But what are you doing for self help? What are you doing to become a stronger salesperson? When was the last time you read a sales book? Here's what I hear from realtors. Well, I'm not really a salesperson. Yeah, you're in a sale. What is your license as sales associate, right? We are salespeople. That's what we do. Now, when you sell a house, it's a little bit different because you're not really selling a house, but everything preparing to get that person in the car is sales, right? Why are they going to use you as a realtor? So, what are you doing to become stronger as a salesperson? What are you doing to become stronger? What are you reading to become stronger as a person? And again, if you're not, have you ever noticed in real estate, this is everybody's business? Everybody. The people that do $2 million a year do $2 million a year. People who do 20 million do 20. People who do 5. People who do 30 do 30. I watch it all the time because I track all of our local agents, and it's amazing. But nobody has a trajectory like this. Why is that? One, they're not running a business, right? They got comfortable, and what happens when you're like this for a long time? Eventually, it goes like this, right? So my favorite line is be uncomfortable with comfortable, right? If you're comfortable, you're not going to make it. But the people that succeed and have that upward trajectory always try to become better at their tracks. Have you gone to EXPCon? Have you gone to shareholders? Have you gone to any of the build events or Cabo? What are you doing to become better realtors? Have you gone to any seminars that are going to help? Tom Ferry, Mike Ferry, any of those things will help you grow your business. And again, Tony Robbins. There's another company called Landmark, which I'm about to do pretty soon. It's another company. It's like a Tony Robbins thing, but a little bit different. Um, but always be moving forward. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you, which is opposite of what other people tell you, you need to make a list of your weaknesses and your strengths. And this is super important. Everybody's always trying to fix their weaknesses. And what I've known after being in business for 42 years and training agents for 18 years, nobody fixes their weaknesses. So I would give up on you, and it sounds like you're giving up, but it's not. I would look at your weaknesses, hire people, right, to fulfill that weakness. Like my weakness is paperwork. I knew I would suck. I have reading disability. I flunked out of college. Um, you know, I was 326 out of 328 in my high school. I begged my political science teacher to pass me so I didn't have to, you know, repeat my senior year, and he liked me, so he did. But I don't look at my weaknesses anymore. I replace my weaknesses with somebody that can handle them, but I really work on is what are my strengths. And because your strengths will overcome your weaknesses. Now, I'm not telling you never to work on anything that you're weak at and become better at. As Hank says, repetition, time on task is 100% true. But again, training all these, everybody, and I've trained thousands of agents. I've yet to see very many, I bet you the percentage is less than 1%, actually improve their weaknesses. So work on your strengths, right? Become really, really good at what you do, right? And then if you don't want to hire someone, find someone that can partner with you. Say, look, I'm really, really good at being the front person, and you're really, really good at being the back person. Let's work together and work out a deal. But your deal, I'll get 70. My deal, I get 75%. Your deal, you get 75%. What? I'm just making crap up, but does that make sense? Don't worry about your weaknesses. It's everybody goes after your weaknesses, and it's my guitar teacher and I just had that conversation. And that's one of the few things that you have to go after your weaknesses because you won't ever be good at guitar unless you go after your weaknesses. But you can get by in sales with not being strong in certain areas of your life. Um, and what was that? No? Okay. And then finally, here's a couple books that I recommend. The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes is one of my favorite books. The 1 Minute Salesperson by Kyle Blanchard's not on there, but he's great. The 1 Minute Manager by Kyle Blanchard, that's not on there either. E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber taught me to delegate and trust in the people that I hire. Of course, I have my own book, So You Have Your Real Estate License Now What, which is good for new agents. If you want a copy of that, let me know and I'll just send you the PDF of it, so you don't have to buy it. And actually, just revamped it. I'm getting ready to republish it. And then Millionaire Real Estate by Gary Keller is really good too. I mean, so all those are really good books to help you in your business. Any Tony Robbins stuff with regards to growing your personal self is phenomenal. All right. All right. Any questions? No?
Yeah,
Easy?
I got one.
Go ahead.
How's it going over here in Tampa? And good morning. So I just was kind of curious from your perspective, how important is confidence in all of this for you and your experience and the delivery of all these things?
Sure. So, a couple things with that. So, okay. So, confidence is important, right? Confidence is really important. And if you're not showing confidence in what you do, people can feel that, and then they don't think you're strong in what you do. So I'll give you an example of that I went on my first open house. I started my career on September 10th, 2001. The next day was 9/11, so we all kind of freaked out that day. In the next 3 days, I wrote 10 fake contracts each day so I could deal with my weakness. Right? I knew writing contracts would be my weakness, but I still had to do it because I didn't have any money. And then I did my first open house on Saturday. And this is before I built my open house strategies and all this stuff. And I remember driving there going, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. And I got zero training, by the way. My broker told me when she hired me, she goes, I don't train. And being an entrepreneur, I wasn't that worried about that. So I go to my open house and I said, well, I've seen open houses on TV. I've seen realtors on TV and I bought 7 homes. So I know not to do what the realtors I hired for because they all sucked. So I know how to be better than them. And I go, I'm just going to act positive and act fun and act like I know what I'm talking about. And all the information I need is on my sheet. Right. And I sold my first house that day. No, I didn't sell that house. I sold another house. And the open house strategy is a whole other class someday. But so confidence is important. The more you know your product and know what you're doing, the better. You should always be learning. When I say you should never be doing nothing, if you're not doing nothing, you should be on Family Tree or you should be on somebody YouTube somewhere learning more about how to be good. But also don't cloud yourself with too much stuff. But confidence is important. Uh, I think that's my number one asset. Is I don't really care what people think of me. So I just really, I have lots of confidence. I mean, it's like, I think why I've been so attracted for so many women all these years because I'm so confident. Sure. Uh, don't tell my wife I said that. Anyways, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and by the way, and people say don't do this, but fake it to the make you make it is how I've lived my entire life. I mean, every business I started, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I bought a restaurant. Like, what the hell am I doing in a restaurant? Paintball business, I know how to run that business. It's an outdoor activity. Dating service, no idea. Online dating service, the first one, so there was nobody. So I just had a lot of confidence. I'll tell you a quick story about confidence. I get a kick out of this one. So it may make you laugh, but it makes me laugh, so that's all that matters. Uh, the so in what year was that? 1995. So I started the first online. I had a regular dating service. I said, wouldn't it be cool if people could just come? Remember the AOL discs that came out? So we might be too young to remember that, but we were all getting these discs for AOL, and that was the internet really exploded was AOL. And I go, wow, wouldn't it be cool if people could do this from their house instead of having come to my office? I had a 5,000 square foot office, and so you could not do it at that time. I lived in Massachusetts, and the technology was not there. You couldn't do database integration in 1994. But by 1995, it happened. And I built my first dating service site and then started raising some capital. So I learned really quickly that I didn't have enough capital to really market it on a nationwide level. So I decided to private label it for the radio, for the media industry, mostly radio. I was in radio and TV advertising before that, and so I go to the Radio Inc. conference in oh, what's the name of that place? It's not Scottsdale, but it's right there by Scottsdale, in this beautiful hotel. And I'm watching a panel with Mark Cuban and and Mark Cuban owned Broadcast.com, which he was under contract to sell with Yahoo at that point. Well, it might have been a year later, so Yahoo. But anyways, um, so he's on the panel, and Mark Cuban, everybody knows he's pretty full of himself, right? So does anybody have any questions? So of course I raise my hand. I go, Mark, it seems to me that you're kind of screwing everybody here. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, you get these people to do $20,000 a month spends on advertising so they can listen to the radio on their website. But when they click on that link, it goes to your website. They register on your website, and you're making millions of dollars in advertising on their $20,000 spends, and they're not making a penny. They're actually paying you $500 a month to do that. And all of a sudden, one of the guys on the panel goes, "Hey, that guy's right." And that's what made my career in the radio industry. I became Mr. Internet in the radio industry. I got swarmed after that by people saying, "How do you know that?" I go, "It's just logic. How do you not know that? How do you guys not know that?" And so anyway, so I literally became Mr. Internet within a month of getting involved with the radio industry. But my point is, it was a confidence in myself, even though my knees were shaking, right? That I could call this out, and that would help build my business, and it did. So confidence is everything. And the other thing, humor is really important. I think one of the reasons why, I sold 80 homes a year. I sold 36 my first year, 50 my second year, 80 my third, 80 my fourth, and then started my brokerage. And since my brokerage size, I did foreclosures for 5 years, and did 130 homes a year that during those times. But I would always sell 25 and 30 homes a year up until a couple of years ago. And it all really came down to I just believe. I believed in myself. So why are people not confident? They're not confident because they either don't know their product or they're shy, which is you've got to figure that out because you're not going to make it in a sales business most of the time if you're shy. And I've always been funny because I look like this. You have to be funny when you look like this. So so that's gotten me through. I've had so many customers reach out to me after our sales, say, hey, a couple of years later, say we had so much fun buying a house with you. We want to do it again. So humor goes a long way, and even learn a couple stupid jokes. Like I have everything I say is stupid jokes, so it's easy for me. But I don't have any canned jokes. I just have fun. Anyways, so growth. I don't know why I'm talking about all this stuff, but it just keeps coming out of my mouth. Verbal diarrhea, right? Anyway, so let's talk about growth for a minute. So you have to figure out in your career what number of transactions you can do without a TC. Now, I recommend after you've done 5 or 10 transactions, you should never ever do a contract to close again. Right? It's what, $350, $400 to have a transaction coordinator do your closings for you. What's happening when you're dealing with all the transaction crap? You're not selling houses. So when I sold 36 homes my first year, I said, all right, for me to get to where I want to go, I'm going to need to hire someone. I didn't at that point, by the way, because I wasn't smart enough in the real estate business to do that. My second year, when I closed 50 sales, I killed myself to sell 50 homes. And I said, and I didn't have an assistant or anything. I said, there's no way I'm going to grow this business without somebody. So I hired my first full-time assistant, when I hit 50 sales, and that allowed me to go up to 80 sales a year. Now, why did I do 80 sales a year? Because at the time that made $250,000 a year. And what was my standard? This is again setting standards for yourself. My standard was, well, as long as I make $250,000 a year, I'll be happy. I can live good on 250 a year. So what did I make? 250 a year. I gave myself a cap in my brain, and that happened to be 80 homes. So I don't do caps anymore. I do goals, and I don't say, well, if I make this much money, I'll be happy. Because this day, thanks to EXP, it's not about money for me anymore. It's about how many lives can I affect? How many people can I change their lives? But you should never, and I said this earlier, you should never be doing $10, $15 an hour jobs, right? Even if you hire someone like, split this. I have one of my agents right now, there's four of them that are hiring an assistant together. So it costs them all about, I think it comes out to about $175 a week each, right? Because they don't need full-time ones, but you need a full-time person to really be plugged in. Um, and then the other part, as I said, kind of said it earlier, is leveling up. How are you leveling up? I was in Puerto Rico, Elizabeth. When was that? Last year, around this time, right? We're in Puerto Rico, and I was sitting down. It was just me and Glenn Sampson. We had a really first time I've actually really got to sit down with Glenn Sampson, just me and him. I've always had somebody else there, and it was really a cool conversation because he was telling me some of the stuff he's working on, and he's a billionaire, right? And some people say, well, as a billionaire, I could probably just coast the rest of my life, but not Glenn. And he's like, he goes, that's the difference between highly successful people and just people that are somewhat successful. He goes, highly successful people are always trying to go up to the next level. And I've been like that my whole life too. I guess I'm highly successful, even though I'm broke. Um, but um, but the reality is you should always be trying to go to the next level because when you're comfortable, you're going to go down, right? Like we're seeing that right now. People who don't build businesses, who don't have solid businesses right now, their sales are down 30%. If you had a solid business and were doing the things you needed to do, you'd be doing it. Let me throw one more other thing out there on the mindset issue. It costs $1,500 to become a realtor, right? $500 for a class, $1,000 to join the board. And by the way, one of my agents did Groupon and got a class for $49, right? So it costs nothing to become a realtor. So the problem with that for you guys, you Utes, is the mindset is I didn't invest anything in this business. I have no financial commitment. What I found, if people don't financially commit to something, they generally don't succeed at it. If they have no skin in the game, they generally don't succeed at it. So I want you to think for a second, what would you do differently in your business today if you invested $250,000 to run your business? Think about it. If you spent $250,000 to start your real estate career instead of 1,500 bucks or less, what would you do differently? I'm going to give you the answer. It's everything. You would do everything completely different. So when I started my first day and I wrote my business plan, the first thing I said, because I was, I've started a couple companies under $1,000, but real estate being about 1,000 or 1,200, 15, whatever it was. And I said, I got to have the mindset that I have my life savings invested in this. And if I don't, then I need to change my mindset to look like that. Now, luckily, I was in a position where I had lost everything and I had $14,000 to my name and I was going to run out of money in 3 months. That was a pretty good motivator for me. But it's a mindset, and I see it time and time again. People get their license. I hear this all the time? So why'd you get your real estate license? I ask every brand new agent. Well, I wanted freedom. I so you're looking for a hobby because nobody starts a career running a business that wants you want freedom eventually. But when you're starting a business, if you're not putting in full time, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, you're not starting a business. You got a hobby. Okay. So the other thing that I've learned over the years, and by the way, I sucked at this, so I preach it now. Firstly, you've all heard Elizabeth, Hank, and Rich and myself preach, read the book Die With Zero. It changed my life last year. So definitely, if you read it, especially if you're in your 30s, even 40s. I mean, I read it at 60, so I read it a couple years ago, but it changed the way I look at everything. But I will tell you the biggest regret I have in my life is that I did not see my children grow up. I worked 80 to 100 hours a week my entire life up until, listen, not too long ago. And I missed that. And you know what? You can't get back. You can't get back time. And knowing what I know now with 42 years of experience of being in business, I would have done things so much differently. I would have reached out to people and asked them what they did. Like I want to talk to someone at 23 when I had my first big business. I should have reached out to somebody and said, "Hey, I got this business. What do I need to do? Now, some people gave me advice. Some of my mentors gave me advice. I didn't listen to it because I was 23 years old and I knew everything. Um, but the reality is, I preach to everybody that your family is the most important thing, part of your life. Your husband, your wife, your kids, grandkids in my case, um, and that has to be number one. So I'm going to give you a quick another story real quick because we got enough time here. I hit a wall. Elizabeth knows the story. I hit a wall about 3 months ago, and that wall was actually going on for about 6 months. And where I just wasn't into it. I wasn't into EXP. I wasn't into my wife. I wasn't into my family. I wasn't depressed. But nobody saw this because I'm really good at confidence and faking it while you make it, right? But what I learned, but I was really struggling, and I went to an interview an agent with my wife brought in my wife's license to take over when I die, and so she brings this agent in, and we walk out, and she goes, "I got to tell you, you really sucked." And I go, I don't give an F. I
I don't
just
have
don't
like
care.
nothing but
And she goes, "You've lost your mojo," and that was the answer I was looking for. I couldn't quite figure out what was going wrong, and that was it. I lost my mojo, so I didn't sleep for 2 days. And I contacted Jarek Robbins, and I go, Jack, I know we don't know each other too well. I don't really need a coach, but um, I really do need some help. And so, and this is 3 o'clock in the morning, by the way. He texted me back at 6 o'clock in the morning on workplace, and he said, "What's your schedule today?" I said, "Available between 1:30 and 2." He goes, "Great, I'll move something. Let's meet. We'll get your mojo back." And here's what he told me. He goes, "When was the last time you looked at your value system?" And it's right here on my desk. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but in 2008, I went to Date with Destiny. You can't really see it. Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins. I go, it was with your dad in 2008. He goes, let me tell you what your values were back then. It was business, family, you, correct? I go, 100%. He goes, it's probably still that, right? I go, probably. He goes, can't be. He goes, it doesn't work. He goes, it has to be family, you, and then business. He explained to me, if your family is not buying into your business and what you're doing, and you're not present when you're there, you're missing out on the most important part of life, which is family. If you're not healthy, then you're missing out, right? You're not going to be able to function. I function at a very high level, and I'm really, really healthy. At the time, I was less healthy because I let myself go for a few months. And then he goes, and then he goes, how do you sleep? And I go, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead. He goes, well, my dad said that until he got metal poisoning. And when he got the metal out of his body, they couldn't get it out of his brain. And he learned at that point that if you're not sleeping, you're not healing your brain. The only thing that heals your brain is sleep. So he made me buy this thing called a Whoop, which measures all your stuff, and I did. And now I literally go to bed at 9 o'clock at night and sleep till usually 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm getting a good 8 hours of sleep every day now. Most days, not every day. And then he goes, "Do you meditate?" And I said, "Well, I try to meditate, but every time I close my eyes to meditate, I think about all the crap I got to do." And he started laughing. He goes, "Well, I see you play guitar because I was playing my guitar like I was with you guys when he first got on." And he goes, "What do you think about when you play guitar?" I go, "Nothing. I think about playing my guitar." He goes, "That's meditation." So I go, "I want you to play every morning for a half hour." And then he said, "Have you tried cold showers?" I said, "Hell no." And he goes, "You got to try it." So I'm desperate. I want to fix myself. And literally, I did all the stuff. I bought the stuff. I always played my guitars for 15 minutes in the morning. Anyways, when I got to the office, I moved that to a half hour. And I did my first cold shower that next morning. And I will tell you, it was hell. It was cold as hell. And I'm in Florida, so it wasn't really cold as hell. It was just cold as Florida cold. And but it was cold, and I got out of there though, and I was immediately back. I got my mojo back that day. Because I got everything he said made sense to me. And the cold showers, like I do it every morning now, and I'll tell you, I get a good 4, 5, 6 hours of unbelievable focus and unbelievable energy by doing that every morning. So the reason why I'm telling you this stuff is you gotta have your life in alignment for your business to run good too. Like that guy I said, the guy I was coaching is 62 years old, never had a life because he let his business run himself. So you got to run your business, not let your business run you. Don't lose sight of what's important. You can literally sell 50 plus homes a year working 40 to 50 hours a week if you're efficient. So that's what I teach these days. How do you become efficient? Some of the stuff we talked about today is how you become efficient. Uh, if you're successful and you're still showing buyers, you're missing the boat. There's plenty of agents that'll work for $25 an hour, to show property for you. If you get a new agent coming in, give them $25 an hour to open the doors. And your value is in negotiating and contract to close, right? Leverage. Always be healthy. What do I do to be healthy? I walk every morning. I walk about a mile with my dog every morning. I have a bad knee. I hurt it on my vacation, so I can't really walk well right now. Before that, I was walking 3 to 4 miles a day. I eat a low carb diet. I'm a diabetic, so I don't do any medicine. I do intermittent fasting. If you've never done intermittent fasting, you should try it. I dropped 20 pounds in about a month doing intermittent fasting. It got me to where I am now. So just do something for your health. Eat properly, though. If you're not, again, if your machine isn't working properly, your business isn't working properly. Uh, Sleep, we talked about. And most importantly, and we'll end on this and I'll open up for any questions, you got to have fun. If you're not having fun, you got to rethink what you're doing and say, if you're not having fun right now in your business, you've got to figure out, A, how do I make it fun, or is this the right business? Because life goes by. If you told me 20 years ago I'd be 62 years old in 5 minutes, I would laugh at you, right? But I will tell you, so who went from 19 to 62 in about 7 seconds, it goes by really, really quick, right? And if you're not having fun, why are you doing it? So you can still have fun. I mean, I'm going to tell you that the majority of you love working with the customers, except for the ones from New York, because we all know New Yorkers suck. But I'm from Boston. I have to hate New Yorkers. It's part of my thing. Um, but the the reality is the one thing I've always been able to do in my life is have fun. Now I've had a couple of businesses. I had a flower business that was a brainstorm I had. It was probably, if I did it, it'd probably be one of the most successful businesses I had because I would have franchised it and everything. But I did it for about a month and it just wasn't fun. So I said I can't do this one. And so find out what's fun for you and make it fun. And then finally, if this business is for you, stop making excuses. One of the things I'll leave you on this note. You got to do the work. You got to be accountable to someone. My accountability goes to me. I shave in the shower every morning. Not a pretty sight anymore, but I shave in the shower every morning, and I shave. I have a mirror, and every single day I talk to myself in the mirror. And here's the cool thing about, I call it the mirror to your success. The cool thing about life is you can rationalize driving down the street why you didn't do what you were going to do. My toenail hurt, or some crappy excuse you gave yourself. But you know who you can't lie to when you're looking in the mirror? You can't lie to yourself. So if you want to have a really good accountability partner, choose yourself. You will be the best one because you know you're full of crap when you're full of crap. Okay. So I get 10 more minutes of my life with you guys. If you guys have any questions about anything or any scenarios you want to talk about, I'm glad to respond and help out.
Mitch, my friend, you're amazing. Is it helpful for y'all to just kind of see it all laid out like this as he goes through it step by step? Are there some takeaways that you guys have had this morning?
Yes, it's great.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you.
Best ever. Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah,
Mitch,
my pleasure.
I would like to share with you something. I was reading my Bible one morning and I opened it up and it says, God established the days of men to be 120 years. And I said, thank you, God, but because I am only halfway. Because sometimes it's like you get the perspective that, at 60 years old, you are already done.
Yeah.
But that day, I start feeling like this is my opportunity. I am going to take it with two hands and I'm going to make it work. But thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for everything you're saying, because this was exactly what I needed this morning. Thank you.
Well, that's great. And I want to touch on a story on that because that's really, really awesome, Patricia. So I tell people I'm going to die at 142. That's my goal. And I'll tell you where that came from. And I'll be really quick on it. So I was 53 years old, and I was speaking at some event somewhere. I couldn't tell you where. And I met this guy at the bar. Because I'll sit at the bar and have dinner when I'm by myself. And I met this guy, and I always obviously talk to everybody because that's what I do. And we started talking. We had a great conversation. He's owned a lumber company up in Minnesota, and I said, he said, "How old are you?" I said, 53. I go, "How old are you?" And I would have guessed 65 or 70 if I had to guess. And I'm really good at guessing ages. The dating service helped me with that. I've always learned to tell women that they look at least 5 to 10 years younger. Um, and so I said, 70. He goes, "No, 94." I go, "No way." I made him show me his ID because I did not believe this guy was
Wow.
94. He was so sharp. I go, who are you here with? He goes, I flew down by myself. I have my business to run. And so I said, so I'm sure you get this all the time, but tell me what's the secret? He goes, I walk 1.3 miles every day, have since 1972. So this is 9 years ago, right? So
Wow.
since 1972, 1.3 miles, not 1.4, not 1.2, 1.3. So I guess he lives in a neighborhood that 1.3 is a block or something, right? Or a couple of blocks. And then he said, he goes, I told everybody I'm not going to die. So
Mhm.
think about that based on what you just said, Patricia. People
Yes.
said that when I turned 55, I kind of freaked out a little bit. My dad was dead at 58. My mother was dead at 59. Most of my relatives died in their 50s. And I started thinking, oh, yeah, I might die in the next few years. That's why I moved to EXP. I moved my brokerage to EXP because I thought I was going to die soon. And then I realized, then I flashed back to that guy and I said, wait a minute. If I'm sitting telling myself I'm going to die in the next few years, the next 15 or 20 years, then I'm definitely going to die in the next few years, the next 15, 20 years, whatever it is. So I changed my complete mindset and came up with the year 142. And I can tell you, I don't feel any different than I did at 52 or even 42. I definitely feel different than 32. But but I think that's a mindset and you hit it right on the head, Patricia. We're built to live longer if you don't abuse yourself.
Yes, I agree with you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mitch.
Mitch, I appreciate you. We appreciate you. I know that I know you really well, but I always just love your humor. And I always love your attitude, and you're always smiling, and you're always starting our calls with guitars. And it's just, you bring a lot of joy to my life. So thank you.
It's a mutual respect. You know how much I love you.
I have a
And by the way,
question for you, Mitch. Sorry.
go ahead. Yeah.
So what did you do when you feel overwhelmed?
Overwhelmed, take a step back. All right.
Okay.
So if you're overwhelmed, take a step back and just like kind of look at your life. Go, all right, why am I overwhelmed? And by the way, I'm human. I get overwhelmed. I deal with that crap all the time. But the reality is sometimes you have to take a step back, or even two steps back to move 5 steps forward. So you got to look back. What's causing you being overwhelmed? Is it because you're not confident in something? You have too much business going on, which is not a bad thing. But if you got too much business, you need to leverage, like we talked about. You have to build a business. So I don't really get overwhelmed anymore. I mean, I had that little few month period there that I told you about that I fixed with Jack Robbins' help, and also the help of Elizabeth, Rich, and Hank, because we all brainstorm together every week. And but if you're overwhelmed, there's a reason for it. So you got to take a step back and say, all right, write down. I'm a big believer in writing stuff down. If you look at my office, I had 30 notepads that have been here for the last year and a half that I've written over the last year and a half. I had to buy a whole bunch of new pads because I ran out. I write everything down because when I write it down, it becomes real. If I just think it, it's not real. Like if you're talking about goals and stuff, like if you're just thinking about goals, it's not real. You're not going to hit those goals. But you write down your goals and how you're going to get there. But it's the same thing with overwhelmed. Why am I overwhelmed? What's going on in my life? Is it family? And then time blocking, by the way, cures almost all of that when you're overwhelmed. When you learn to really time block and really focus on that 1 hour piece of time instead of what you have to do. One more quick thing on that. If you have projects to do, so people ask me, how did I manage to write 2 books when I was working 80 hours a week? Because I'm writing now right now because I'm working on a new book. Uh, I write 15 minutes a day. So I look at a project, which is what overwhelms a lot of people, and I break that project into 15-minute increments. And it'll take me 2 years to write this next book I'm writing, but I'm in no hurry. So take a step back, write down everything going on, so you can look at it, see it on paper, what's bothering you. That'll definitely help you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mitch. That's great.
All right, you guys, we're pretty much at the top of the hour. I'm running to a closing. I hope you guys took a lot from this. We've got the document. Mitch already sent it, so we will post that back in the group as well, so you can go back and research it and review it. And if you guys need anything between now and next Friday, let me know, and just make it an amazing week, and you're all rock stars. So Mitch, thank you, my friend.
Can I
If
ask one last question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
yeah.
What would be the first book you recommend to somebody that wants to work on self-confidence and be in, just when portray themselves as someone that's more, efficient or confident in what they're doing? What would be the first book you would read?
Yeah, I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, so anything from Tony Robbins has really changed my life as far as confidence. It makes you feel better about yourself and understand where some of your stuff comes from that you can work on. Um, those are pretty much for me. All my other books were Die with Zero, definitely too. I mean, Daiwa Zero, that's not going to give you more confidence, but it's going to give you a better understanding on life. But Tony Robbins stuff is all, confidence comes from within, right? It comes from, it's a weakness within you that's stopping you from being confident. So if that's what it is, then you've got to figure out what that is. And that's what Tony Robbins helps you do. It helps you figure out different aspects of your life. So I would recommend Tony Robbins stuff.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure. And by the
Okay,
way, if
y'all.
anybody needs me for anything, just chat me on Workplace. I help. I don't care whose organization you're with, or all that doesn't matter to me. If you need, a one-on-one coaching session, reach out to me. I'm glad to help anybody.
I will
Sure.
reach you, Mitch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye
Mitch,
guys.
you're amazing. All right, guys, have an amazing weekend and we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.